Hi there, movie lovers. If the gangster, the cop, the devil has been on your mind, you've come to the right place. Released on May 15, 2019. This film is packed with surprises, and today, we're going to break it all down for you. If you're excited to explore more, be sure to like this video. It's a small click that means the world to us. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on any of our deep dives into your favorite movies. Let's get started. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil hit theaters on May 15, 2019, with an explosive impact that captured the attention of action movie enthusiasts and critics alike. A genre-defying thriller, the film expertly weaves together crime, suspense, and brutal action in a way that feels fresh, gripping, and unpredictable. From the moment it opens, the movie sets a unique tone, blending razor-sharp tension with an undercurrent of dark humor that makes each scene pulse with energy. For fans of Korean cinema, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is more than just another crime drama. It's a high-octane ride that promises surprises around every corner and unforgettable characters whose complex dynamics drive the story forward. It isn't just about good guys and bad guys. It's about blurred lines, unexpected alliances, and the fine thread that holds everything together. As the film opens, we are introduced to the stark, unforgiving world where violence is commonplace, and loyalty is bought and sold in equal measure. Jang Dong-seok, portrayed by Dong-seok, is a seasoned gangster, a man whose reputation precedes him, and whose very presence commands respect. This isn't a man who relies on words or negotiation. His fists do the talking. He's the kind of gangster who doesn't hesitate when faced with enemies. But when a mysterious serial killer targets him, something unexpected happens. What should have been just another violent chapter in his already brutal life turns into the beginning of a chilling cat-and-mouse game that will blur the lines between cop and criminal. Jang's introduction to the serial killer, a shadowy figure who operates without remorse, happens quickly and violently. The brutal attack leaves Jang badly injured, his life hanging in the balance. This isn't just any attack, though. It's personal. The killer isn't content with random victims. His victims are meticulously chosen, his methods precise and chillingly efficient. The police are scrambling for leads, unable to connect the dots between the various gruesome murders. But what they don't know is that Jang, despite his injury, has a resolve like no other. A desire for vengeance that will pull him into an unholy alliance with Detective Jang, a lawman whose methods are as unconventional as his morals. Detective Jang, played by Mu-yeol, is a man who's seen it all. He's not your stereotypical by-the-book cop. In fact, he's closer to a wild card who operates in the shadows, walking the thin line between legal and illegal. Where the law fails to provide answers, Jang picks up the slack, using his own methods to get to the heart of the matter. When Jang, the gangster, makes it clear that he wants the killer dead, no questions asked, Jang finds himself with a reluctant partner in crime. It's a strange alliance at first, one built out of necessity rather than trust. The cop has his badge, the gangster has his street smarts, and neither is prepared to completely rely on the other. Yet, it's this odd partnership that drives the story to its explosive climax. From here, the film begins to unravel in unexpected ways. On the surface, it's a story about catching a serial killer, but underneath, it's much more. A story about what drives people to seek justice and how those seeking it often become something darker than they intend. As the two men begin to work together, they learn that the killer they're hunting isn't just a monster. It's a man whose motivations are chillingly complex, whose mind works in ways they can't easily fathom. This isn't a mindless killer. This is a predator who knows how to manipulate the situation to his advantage. Each move he makes is a calculated one, and as the film progresses, it becomes clear that the biggest threat may not just be the killer. It may be the very things that both Jang and Detective Jang are willing to sacrifice to catch him. The first twist comes quickly and unexpectedly. What starts as a straightforward pursuit of the killer turns into a series of encounters that test the resolve of both men. The deeper they dig, the darker the secrets they uncover, not just about the killer, but about themselves. As they work together, the violence escalates, and so does the tension between the two unlikely allies. Jang, with his brutal methods, begins to realize that his own brand of justice may not be enough in the face of an adversary who seems almost superhuman in his ruthlessness. Detective Jang, meanwhile, struggles with his own personal demons, the weight of his career, and his growing uncertainty about the morality of the pursuit. By the time the second major twist arrives, the stakes are raised higher than anyone could have imagined. The killer, whom they've been tracking with mounting desperation, seems to always be one step ahead. He's not just taunting them, he's playing a game, one where every move feels like a checkmate. At this point, Jang and Jung's uneasy alliance becomes more than just tactical. It's a battle for their very souls. What begins as a chase to capture a killer becomes an exploration of the blurred lines between good and evil, vengeance and justice, and what it means to be human in a world ruled by violence and power. And then, the film hits its third act, where every expectation is upended. The revelations that follow are both shocking and thought-provoking, forcing both characters to question everything they've known. The final confrontation with the killer isn't just a physical one. It's a psychological battle that pits each man's darkest fears and deepest desires against one another. What they discover about the killer, and, more startlingly, about themselves, will leave audiences on the edge of their seats, caught between exhilaration and disbelief. What makes The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil truly unforgettable isn't just the thrilling plot or the unforgettable action sequences, though those are more than enough to make it a must-watch. It's the way the film delves into the psychology of its characters, creating a narrative where everyone's motives are unclear, and no one can be fully trusted. The twists are as much about character development as they are about plot, and that's what makes them so effective. Each twist is a revelation not just of the plot, but of the personal stakes each character faces. In many ways, the film is about transformation. Jang, the tough gangster, begins as a man consumed by rage and revenge, but through his reluctant partnership with Detective Jung, he slowly becomes something more complicated, someone whose motivations are examined in unexpected ways. Jung, the cop who's lived by his own set of rules, faces his own internal struggles as he finds himself crossing lines he never thought he would cross in pursuit of justice. As the story builds toward its final moments, the film's pacing accelerates, leaving the audience breathless. What was once a straightforward chase turns into a maelstrom of emotions, deception, and high-stakes action. The ending is both thrilling and poignant, offering no easy answers, only the harsh reality of the choices each man has made along the way. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is more than just a typical action film. It's a masterclass in suspense, a story about survival, justice, and the moral compromises that people make when faced with unimaginable circumstances. It's about the price of revenge, and whether it's worth paying when the cost becomes clear. With its memorable characters, relentless action, and powerful emotional undercurrents, it's a film that doesn't just entertain, it makes you think. For anyone looking for a gritty, heart-pounding thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat, this movie is a must-watch. And as the final scene plays out, leaving you in stunned silence, you'll realize that The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil isn't just a film, it's an experience. The air in the city was thick with the stench of danger as a man lay slumped in the shadows of an alleyway, blood pooling beneath him, the cold night air doing nothing to soothe his pain. Jang Dong-seok, a figure whose very name struck fear into the hearts of those who knew him, was not a man accustomed to being the victim. But tonight, things were different. The stabs of pain in his side were a stark reminder of how vulnerable even the strongest could be. He had been ambushed, blindsided by someone he couldn't even see. The world he had spent his life controlling, a world of violence, power, and fear, had suddenly turned against him. His fate was uncertain, but the instinct to survive was stronger than the rising tide of blood that threatened to drown him. The darkness outside seemed almost peaceful, contrasting sharply with the chaos that reigned inside Jang's mind. His eyes, heavy with the weight of pain, flickered with determination. The ruthless gangster was down but not out. He had a reputation built on brutality, an empire carved from fear and force. But now, as the seconds ticked by, he realized he was facing something far more sinister than anything he had ever encountered. A predator whose identity was as elusive as the night itself. Jang's world had always been one of control, his decisions made with precision, his enemies crushed beneath his iron fist. But this killer, this faceless monster, was something entirely different. The fear he had seen in the eyes of his men when they spoke of the serial killer haunting the streets had been dismissible at first, a passing concern in his mind. After all, he wasn't just any gangster. He was the gangster. He wasn't someone to be easily preyed upon. But now, with a knife wound that made every breath feel like a battle, Jang realized he was wrong. As he staggered to his feet, clutching his side, Jang's thoughts were interrupted by a sound, a creak of footsteps. A shadow passed across his vision. He didn't have time to react, but then something familiar appeared, the reflection of the streetlights in a pair of polished shoes. They belonged to someone he knew. A cop. Detective Jang, a man who had crossed Jang's path countless times, mostly in the form of threats and standoffs. But Jang was different from the other lawmen who tried to bring him down. He wasn't afraid of Jang's reputation, and he didn't flinch when Jang's temper flared. In fact, Jang had learned to work within the shadows of the law, bending rules when necessary, always on the lookout for a bigger picture. "What the hell happened to you?" Jang's voice was low but laced with genuine curiosity, as though Jang's bleeding form wasn't a surprise but more of a puzzle to be solved. Jang couldn't answer immediately, his chest heaving with each breath. His hands shook, but not from fear. Anger simmered beneath the surface. He wasn't used to feeling helpless, and certainly not in front of a cop. "A killer," Jang muttered between gasps. "He got me. And now, he's going to keep killing." Jang's expression hardened. The city had been plagued by a string of murders, all too calculated to be the work of a random criminal. The police had no leads, no solid suspects, and the case seemed to be slipping further out of their grasp with each passing day. But this was different. This wasn't just another random murder. This was a direct message. Jang Dong-seok was a man who had been untouchable until now, and that fact made the killer's actions all the more chilling. Whoever this person was, they had the audacity to not only take on the most feared gangster in the city but to do so with such precision. It was as if they had been waiting for this moment. "Why would you help me?" Jang finally managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. Jang didn't flinch at the question. Instead, he took a long look at the gangster, the chaos of the situation settling between them like a heavy cloud. "I'm not helping you, Jang. I'm helping myself," Jang replied, his voice steady. "That killer you're talking about? He's out there, and he doesn't care about who you are. He's hunting down anyone who gets in his way. That means you're not the only one he's coming for. He's coming for everyone." Jang's bloodshot eyes narrowed, trying to grasp the full meaning of Jang's words. The cop wasn't offering him mercy, he was offering him something more dangerous, an alliance. Jang wasn't trying to arrest him, he was trying to leverage Jang's expertise, his network, his influence in the criminal underworld. Jang had connections, and those connections might be the key to finding the killer. But Jang wasn't ready to trust a cop, even one as pragmatic as Jang. In his world, there was only one truth. Survival was all that mattered, and the law was just another enemy to be crushed. Yet here, in the dim light of the alley, survival depended on something more than force. It depended on intelligence, on strategy, on finding a predator who was operating far outside the rules. Jang's mind raced as he stared at Jang. A strange understanding flickered between them. The cop needed the gangster's help, but Jang needed the cop's resources. It wasn't just a business arrangement. It was the start of something more complicated, more dangerous. A shaky hand reached into Jang's coat pocket, retrieving a phone that had somehow survived the attack. He handed it to Jang, who immediately dialed the number of one of his contacts at the precinct. "We need information," Jang said, his voice curt. "Get me everything we have on this killer. If we can't catch him through the system, we'll have to catch him on the streets. And we need to move fast." As they made their plans, the tension between them was palpable. The gangster was calculating, his instincts honed over years of surviving in a brutal world. The cop, on the other hand, was methodical, trusting in the slow but steady progress of the law. The two of them were from different worlds, but their goals aligned in a way that neither could have predicted. The killer was out there, watching, waiting for his next victim, and for reasons neither man fully understood yet, Jang's life, and now Jang's, had become entangled in the hunt. The days that followed saw Jang and Jang working together, a partnership forged not out of trust but out of necessity. Jang, recovering from his injuries, used his connections in the underworld to dig up information, each lead darker and more twisted than the last. Meanwhile, Jang worked from the law enforcement side, but the more he learned, the less certain he became about the boundaries between right and wrong. As they dug deeper into the case, their world was filled with whispers of the killer, his methods, his patterns, his strange psychological profile. And through it all, the tension between Jang and Jung continued to grow, a simmering mix of distrust and grudging respect. Neither one knew it yet, but this uneasy partnership was about to take them down a road neither of them could have anticipated. The foreshadowing of what lay ahead was subtle but undeniable. Each clue, each encounter with the killer, revealed a man who was far more than a simple murderer. This was someone who had thought through every move, someone who understood how to play people, how to manipulate events to his advantage. In the midst of this deadly game, Jang and Jung were just pawns, unaware of the dangerous moves the killer was making behind the scenes. At the same time, the cracks in their own alliance began to show. Jang, for all his strength and ruthlessness, found himself reliant on a cop, a man who represented everything he hated about the system. Jung, meanwhile, found himself questioning his own moral compass, unsure if he was fighting for justice or simply being swept up in the storm of his own need to catch this killer. But the killer wasn't just a shadow in the city. He was a force, one that neither Jang nor Jung could fully understand yet. And as their pursuit grew more desperate, it became clear that they weren't just hunting a murderer, they were hunting a reflection of themselves. In the dark corners of the city, the killer waited, knowing that every step they took would bring them closer to the truth, but also closer to something far more dangerous, a reckoning. As the days wore on, the tension between Jang Dong-seok and Detective Jung grew. The longer they worked together, the more they realized that their partnership wasn't simply about tracking down a killer. It was about something darker, more complicated. Each move they made felt like a step further into a maze, one they couldn't escape from, and with every piece of information they uncovered, the killer became less of a shadow and more of a person whose presence loomed over them like an invisible weight. Jang's instincts, honed by years of surviving in the underworld, had taught him to expect the unexpected. But nothing had prepared him for the relentless precision with which this killer operated. It wasn't just about violence, it was about control. Every murder, every step the killer took, was calculated, executed with a chilling calmness that made Jang question everything he knew about what it meant to be a predator. In the quiet moments when the chase slowed down, Jang found himself thinking not just about survival, but about what kind of man he had become. The killer was methodical, unflinching, and disturbingly intelligent. A far cry from the chaos Jang had created in his own life. He began to realize that this killer was more than a monster. They were a mirror. Meanwhile, Detective Jung, driven by the need for justice, found himself caught between the world of the law and the brutal, unforgiving world of Jang. He had always prided himself on sticking to his principles, even when it meant playing within the gray areas. But with every lead they chased, every secret they uncovered, Jung found his sense of justice slipping. He began to wonder whether the rules he had always adhered to were simply a way to avoid the harder questions. Was it right to pursue the killer at all costs, even if it meant becoming like the very thing they were hunting? The lines between right and wrong had blurred, and Jung found himself questioning the cost of pursuing justice in a world that had no clear answer. It was then, in the midst of their uneasy alliance, that they found the breakthrough they had been searching for. The killer had made a mistake, a small but significant one. In his effort to stay hidden, he had underestimated the resources Jang and Jung could bring to bear. The mistake was enough to expose his location, enough to push the investigation into its final stages. As the realization hit, a plan began to form. Jang and Jung would confront the killer, and this time, there would be no escape. But as they prepared for the final showdown, something unexpected happened. A twist that none of them could have anticipated. They discovered that the killer wasn't working alone. Behind the murders, behind the careful planning, was someone else. Someone closer to them than they could have imagined. The true mastermind was not just a rogue element, but someone who had been playing them all along. The revelation hit them like a punch to the gut. All the pieces that had once seemed separate, the brutal murders, the mysterious nature of the killer, the psychological games they had been forced to play, suddenly made sense. The killer wasn't the only one who had been in control. Someone else had been pulling the strings all along, and they were closer to home than either Jang or Jung had realized. The revelation shook Jang to his core. He had always thought he was the one in charge, that he was the one who dictated the rules of the game. But now, as the truth came to light, he saw that he had been played, just like everyone else. The killer, the predator who had seemed invincible, was merely a pawn in a much larger game. And the person behind it all wasn't someone from the criminal underworld, but someone who had spent their life hiding in plain sight, playing the role of the perfect lawman. Jung, too, found himself facing an uncomfortable truth. He had always prided himself on being a man of justice, someone who followed the law no matter where it took him. But now, in the face of this revelation, he realized that he had been walking a thin line between righteousness and corruption. The man who had been his ally in this fight, the very gangster he had come to rely on, was now the only person he could trust. And in that moment, Jung understood something crucial. Justice, like survival, wasn't always black and white. Sometimes, it came down to choices, difficult, dangerous choices, and whether you could live with the consequences. As the final confrontation loomed, the air was thick with anticipation. Jang and Jung, two men who had once been enemies, now stood side by side, united by a single goal: to confront the true mastermind and put an end to the bloodshed. But the closer they got, the more dangerous the situation became. They were no longer just hunting a killer. They were hunting a reflection of themselves, a shadow that had been cast by their own choices. The climax of the story came quickly, with the tension rising to unbearable levels. The final showdown was not just a physical confrontation. It was an emotional one, as both men faced the reality of their own actions. As the killer and his accomplices closed in, Jang and Jung were forced to make choices that would change everything. The fight was brutal, intense, and chaotic, a perfect reflection of the internal struggles both men had been facing. Each punch, each move, was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for redemption, for the chance to make things right. But the most shocking twist of all came when the true mastermind revealed himself. In a moment of chilling clarity, the man who had orchestrated the entire series of murders, the man who had used Jang and Jung like pawns in his game, was none other than a person they had both trusted. The twist was staggering. The revelation that the one person they had relied on throughout the investigation had been the one pulling the strings all along. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete unraveling of everything they had believed about the case, about themselves. In the final moments, as the dust settled and the truth was laid bare, Jang and Jung were left to confront the consequences of their actions. The killer was caught, but the emotional toll of the journey had left its mark. Both men had been changed by what they had gone through, by the choices they had made, and the cost of those choices. The resolution wasn't just about bringing a killer to justice. It was about understanding the price of vengeance, the cost of crossing lines, and the harsh reality that sometimes, the fight for what's right comes at an unimaginable price. In the end, the resolution tied everything together in a way that was both satisfying and haunting. Jang, the gangster who had once ruled through fear, found himself questioning everything he had ever known about power. Detective Jung, the cop who had once believed in the purity of justice, was left to reckon with the darkness that had seeped into his own soul. And as the final scenes played out, with both men standing side by side, there was a sense that they had both come to an understanding, a recognition that the world they inhabited was far more complex, far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The true cost of survival, of justice, and of power was not something that could be calculated by simple rules. In the end, it was a lesson learned the hardest way possible, through blood, betrayal, and the willingness to face the truth, no matter how devastating it might be. In the depths of the underworld, where violence was the language of power, Jang Dong-seok had carved his name into the streets. His presence was one that demanded respect, a gangster whose reputation was built not just on his ruthless ability to command his territory, but on his unflinching determination to survive in a world where only the strongest prevailed. But beneath the hardened exterior, Jang was a man at war with himself. He had lived a life that had turned his soul cold, his heart shielded from the softer edges of humanity. His every decision was shaped by the unyielding drive for survival, a pursuit that had cost him connections, love, and perhaps even his own humanity. Yet even in the darkest moments, when his past threatened to swallow him whole, there was something undeniably human about him. Jang wasn't a man without emotion. He was simply a man who had buried his emotions so deep that they barely reached the surface. His motivations were clear: power, survival, and control. He didn't seek to be loved, but rather feared. And yet, as the story unfolded, we saw cracks in his armor, moments when the man behind the gangster began to emerge. The performance of actor Ma Dong-seok was nothing short of mesmerizing, bringing Jang Dong-soo to life with a physicality that matched the intensity of his character's psyche. Ma's portrayal captured Jang's complex nature, effortlessly shifting between cold indifference and moments of vulnerability. In a world where Jang was used to dominating every situation, Ma's performance subtly hinted at the fear and pain that lay beneath, giving the character an unexpected depth. Jang wasn't just a thug or a villain. He was a man shaped by the choices he had made, and the man who would stop at nothing to keep his life intact. The way Ma captured Jang's conflicted nature was particularly striking. His brutal, larger-than-life persona was never disconnected from his inner turmoil, a constant reminder that the power he wielded came at a significant cost. On the other side of the narrative stood Detective Jang, a man who wore his badge like a shield, his moral compass anchored firmly in the world of justice. Jang was methodical, driven by a need to serve the law, to be the protector of the weak and the enforcer of order. But as the story progressed, it became clear that Jang's journey was one of self-discovery as much as it was about solving a crime. His motivations, though noble at first, were gradually tempered by the realization that the world wasn't as simple as it seemed. Jang's belief in the law and his sense of justice were challenged in ways he had never anticipated. The world he had carefully built around himself, one governed by rules and regulations, began to unravel as he was forced to confront the dark side of humanity. The choices he was asked to make were no longer as clear-cut as they once had been, and with each passing moment, Jang found himself on the edge of a precipice, unsure of what lay beneath. Was he still the man he thought he was? Or was he just as capable of crossing lines as the criminals he once pursued? Jang's performance, brought to life by actor Mu-yeol, was a masterclass in restraint. There was a quiet intensity to his portrayal that conveyed the inner conflict of the character without ever needing to vocalize it. Jang's struggles weren't always external. They were often seen in the small gestures, the tightening of his jaw, the furrowed brow, the hesitant step forward. He wasn't a man of grand speeches or over-the-top displays of emotion, but his internal battle was just as riveting. Jang wasn't the perfect cop, and it was through Kim's subtle yet powerful performance that we saw his descent into the morally ambiguous territory of the case. As Jang partnered with Jang, his views on justice and morality were slowly shifted, and the moments when Jang was forced to make decisions that conflicted with his core beliefs were some of the most emotionally charged in the film. While Jang and Jung were the central pillars of the story, the film's strength also lay in its supporting characters, each one contributing to the evolving drama in ways that pushed the story forward. One of the most compelling secondary characters was the mysterious serial killer who terrorized the city. This killer was not just a simple antagonist. He was a force of nature, a being whose every action seemed to be calculated, carefully planned, and executed with chilling precision. The killer's motivations were never fully revealed, but that was part of the allure. We were never meant to fully understand him. His presence served as a reflection of Jang and Jung's own struggles, as they too found themselves caught in a game they didn't fully control. The killer wasn't just a villain to be defeated. He was a mirror, a dark reflection of the very system that Jang and Jung were both a part of. His cold, unfeeling nature was the perfect foil to the warmth, however faint, that flickered inside Jang and Jung as they grew and evolved throughout the story. Yet the killer's role was more than just a narrative device. It was also an opportunity for the film to explore the nature of evil. The killer was not some one-dimensional figure. He was a complex character who operated under his own set of rules, his own twisted code. The film never gave us easy answers about his motivations, but it allowed the audience to draw their own conclusions, to look beyond the surface and see a reflection of a world where violence and death were as much a part of the fabric of existence as life itself. The killer's contribution to the story was invaluable. Not only did he drive the narrative forward, but he also became a lens through which Jang and Jung could explore their own moral compasses. As the killer's actions grew more intense, more personal, Jang and Jung were forced to reckon with their own capacity for violence, their own roles in a system that didn't always distinguish between right and wrong. In addition to the killer, other supporting characters brought their own depth to the narrative. Jang's inner circle, made up of loyal subordinates, played key roles in fleshing out the underworld that Jang had built. These characters were more than mere henchmen. They were men who had chosen to live in the shadows, bound by loyalty to a leader who demanded nothing less than absolute devotion. They too were a reflection of Jang, shaped by their surroundings and their choices. Each one of them had a story, a reason for falling into the darkness, and each one brought a different perspective to the larger conflict. The moments between Jang and his subordinates were some of the most poignant, as they showcased the human side of the gangster, the man who still valued loyalty and camaraderie, even in a world of violence and betrayal. Jung, too, was surrounded by a cast of supporting characters who added richness to his journey. His fellow detectives, who often provided comic relief or brief moments of tension, served as a reminder of the world Jung had left behind when he was pulled deeper into the case. These characters acted as anchors, reminding Jung of his duty to the law and offering a counterbalance to the increasingly complex moral landscape he found himself navigating. The small interactions between Jung and his colleagues, though seemingly trivial at times, were crucial in reminding the audience of the man Jung used to be, before the case had begun to change him. They were a subtle but important part of his evolution, showing that even the most determined men couldn't escape the complexities of their choices. The most fascinating aspect of the supporting cast, however, was how they helped to illuminate the central themes of the film: survival, morality, and the blurred line between good and evil. The characters, both main and supporting, acted as pieces of a puzzle, each contributing a unique perspective to the overall narrative. Jang's journey was not just about his own redemption. It was about understanding that redemption was not something that could be achieved in isolation. Likewise, Jung's evolution wasn't just about solving a case. It was about understanding that justice was not an abstract concept, but a deeply personal one. In this way, the supporting characters weren't just filling out the world around Jang and Jung. They were shaping their growth and pushing them toward the realizations they would ultimately make about themselves. The way the performances brought these characters to life was a testament to the richness of the script and the depth of the actors' portrayals. Each character, no matter how minor, felt fully realized, with their own motivations, desires, and flaws. The actors breathed life into these roles, ensuring that even the most fleeting interactions carried weight. Even the smallest details contributed to the larger narrative. The result was a film that didn't just tell a story. It immersed the audience in a world where every character had a purpose, where every action mattered, and where every choice, no matter how small, left an indelible mark. When the production team behind The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil set out to bring this gripping crime thriller to life, they knew they were taking on more than just another typical action film. The script, with its dark, morally complex characters, demanded a level of sophistication and raw intensity that would be a challenge to translate to the screen. What came from those early discussions was an incredibly collaborative effort, with each department of the film working in concert to create a world that felt both visceral and believable, where every shot and decision served to deepen the story. One of the most challenging aspects of bringing this story to life was creating the perfect balance between action and character development. Director Won-tae, known for his meticulous approach to filmmaking, understood that the audience needed to be as invested in the psychological development of the characters as they were in the action-driven moments. His method of working with his cast involved not just rehearsals but deep discussions into the motivations of their characters, ensuring every line, every facial expression, and every gesture felt authentic. The cast had to deliver not only their lines but also the emotion embedded in them, and Lee, an unrelenting perfectionist, made sure that every moment on set was filled with intent. This attention to detail wasn't confined solely to the actors. Cinematographer Choi Young-hwan also had a significant role in shaping the film's atmosphere. The dark, gritty tone of the story was brought to life with his careful use of shadows and lighting. It's no secret that lighting can either enhance or detract from a film's mood, and for a movie that pivots around themes of crime and morality, every scene needed to have a sense of foreboding that mirrored the tension between the characters. Choi often used harsh contrasts, bright lights battling against deep shadows, to show the internal conflicts within Jang Dong-seok and Detective Jang. This contrast wasn't just visual. It served as a metaphor for the duality in these characters' natures, where one moment could feel heavy with regret and the next pulsing with the adrenaline of a high-stakes chase. The film's script, penned by Won-tae and Kang-Ho, had its roots in a long, drawn-out process. The original idea came from a desire to explore the relationship between a criminal and a cop, which had been explored in various ways before, but rarely from this perspective. The goal was to build a narrative that was deeply personal to each character, one that blurred the lines between good and evil, justice and vengeance. In the early drafts, the relationship between Jang and Jung was less of a partnership and more of a cat-and-mouse game. But over time, the screenwriters began to see something more profound unfold. They realized the story wasn't just about solving a crime. It was about how each man came to terms with his own flaws, how the chase itself mirrored their internal struggles. This thematic shift brought a complexity to the script that would later become the cornerstone of the film's emotional impact. The casting of Ma Dong-seok as Jang was one of the film's pivotal decisions, one that shaped the entire tone of the movie. Ma, known for his past roles as a tough, no-nonsense character, was a perfect fit for Jang's exterior. However, it was Ma's ability to show vulnerability beneath his character's gruff surface that really made the role stand out. What many don't know is that Ma was actually involved in the development of his character in a way that went beyond mere performance. He worked closely with Won-tae and the rest of the team to refine Jang's backstory, ensuring that every decision the character made in the story was grounded in his past experiences. Ma's commitment to the role extended beyond just acting. He immersed himself in the mindset of a gangster who was not just driven by violence, but by his struggle with identity. This deeper exploration helped to transform Jang from a stereotypical gangster into a more nuanced and tragic figure, making his journey towards self-discovery one of the most compelling aspects of the story. Mu-yeol, who portrayed Detective Jang, brought a different kind of intensity to the role. While Jang's journey was physical, marked by brutal action and tension, Jung's was psychological. Jung's emotional development was something that had to be delivered with subtlety and control, and Kim's portrayal was a masterclass in restraint. Behind the stoic exterior, Kim crafted a character filled with doubt and internal conflict, a man whose faith in the law was shaken by the grim realities of the case. The chemistry between Ma and Kim was undeniable, with their performances building an unspoken tension that was felt throughout the film. Off-screen, the two actors became fast friends, developing a camaraderie that only strengthened their on-screen partnership. Their ability to play off each other with such authenticity brought the film's central relationship to life in a way that felt organic and heartfelt, even when the stakes were at their highest. The killer, played by actor Sung-kyu, was another critical piece of the puzzle. His character was carefully crafted to be as chilling as he was enigmatic. The choice to make the killer so cold and calculating was driven by a desire to give him a sense of agency, rather than having him serve as a mere plot device. Kim's performance was eerie in its calmness, creating a character who felt just as much a product of his environment as the heroes chasing him. The killer wasn't just a force of nature. He was a mirror to Jang and Jung, showing what they might become if they fully gave in to their darkest impulses. Kim's portrayal of the killer, stoic, meticulous, and devoid of empathy, served as the perfect foil to the characters of Jang and Jung, and it helped elevate the film's thematic concerns about morality, survival, and the blurred lines between right and wrong. But it wasn't just the performances of the main cast that made the film so memorable. It was the incredible attention to detail that went into every aspect of the production. The production designers, led by Kim Do-young, created environments that enhanced the narrative, turning the setting into a character in its own right. The gritty, industrial backdrop of the city, with its shadow-filled alleys and broken-down buildings, played a significant role in shaping the film's atmosphere. The choice of locations was deliberate. Each space was chosen to reflect the themes of isolation and moral decay. The crumbling cityscapes were a visual reminder that the characters, much like their surroundings, were decaying from the inside out. The locations were not just backdrops. They were integral to the storytelling, adding layers of meaning to the unfolding drama. One of the most impressive aspects of the production was the film's action sequences, which were both brutal and beautifully choreographed. The filmmakers chose to approach the action not just as spectacle but as a means of expressing the psychological states of the characters. The fight scenes, particularly between Jang and the killer, were designed not just to thrill but to reveal the emotional stakes of the characters involved. They were not simply physical confrontations. They were battles of wills, moments where Jang and Jung confronted the parts of themselves they feared most. The intense action sequences were shot in a way that highlighted the physical toll of violence, focusing not just on the speed and brutality of the fights but on the exhaustion, the pain, and the emotional weight carried by each character. These moments were among the film's most thrilling, but they were also the most telling in terms of character development. The film also had a surprising number of subtle Easter eggs and nods to Korean pop culture, as well as references to previous works by the filmmakers. For instance, a brief scene in the beginning of the film shows a newspaper with a headline about an old criminal case, an homage to Lee Won-tae's earlier work in the crime genre. There was also a moment where Jang, while talking to a subordinate, mentions a name that seemed unimportant at first but later becomes key to understanding the film's final twist. These little moments were woven into the script not just as fan service but as a way of deepening the world of the film. The final edit of the film, however, was not without its challenges. The initial cut was much longer, with several key sequences exploring the backstories of the characters in greater detail. But as the editing process progressed, the team realized that the emotional impact of the film would be stronger if they trimmed down some of the extraneous material and focused more on the core narrative. This decision wasn't easy, especially for a director as invested in the details as Lee, but it ultimately resulted in a tighter, more focused film that placed the emphasis on the core themes of the story. The pacing, which moved quickly through the tension-filled moments, allowed the audience to stay engaged without ever feeling overwhelmed by excess information. What made the gangster, the cop, the devil truly unforgettable, though, was how every decision, from the casting to the location scouting to the action choreography, served the film's central themes. It wasn't just a story about crime and justice. It was a story about survival, identity, and what happens when two men, each flawed in their own way, are forced to reckon with their own darkness. From the smallest details to the most elaborate sequences, every part of the production worked in harmony to create a film that was not only thrilling but emotionally complex. And while the challenges were many, they ultimately led to a finished product that left an indelible mark on anyone who watched it. A film that was as much about the journey of the characters as it was about the story they told. The film begins in a world where the line between right and wrong feels increasingly blurred, and it is within this world that the characters of the gangster, the cop, the devil begin their journey. From the very first moments, the audience is drawn into a narrative that feels both visceral and deeply human, one that doesn't offer easy answers but forces us to grapple with complex themes of morality, survival, and the consequences of violence. Every twist, every pivotal decision the characters make is laden with emotional and thematic weight, and these moments not only drive the plot forward but also serve to illuminate the deepest facets of their personalities. The first major turning point in the story happens when Jang Dong-seok, the hardened gangster, is viciously attacked by a serial killer. This event sets off a series of reactions that catalyze the entire narrative. At first, Jang is nothing more than a man in a hospital bed, broken and vulnerable. But it's this vulnerability that provides one of the most crucial emotional arcs of the film. Jang's reaction to his near-death experience isn't what we might expect. Rather than seeking revenge in the typical, violent fashion that would seem characteristic of his persona, he enters into a strange alliance with Detective Jung, a lawman who represents the very system that Jang has spent his life challenging and undermining. This decision to team up with a cop not only adds a layer of tension and intrigue but also serves as a mirror to Jang's deeper conflict. He is no longer just a gangster but a man whose survival instinct is forcing him to confront forces outside of his control. The moment when Jang, laying in a hospital bed, makes the decision to join forces with Jung marks the beginning of a transformation for him, one that will unfold as the narrative progresses. It is a turning point where his character becomes more complex, where the motivations driving him are no longer confined solely to survival and power but begin to encompass something more, something rooted in the shared human experience of fear, desperation, and the will to survive. As the story progresses, we see the deepening of the partnership between Jang and Jung. Initially, the two men couldn't be more different. Jang, the rogue gangster, and Jung, the principled detective. Their interactions are charged with distrust, but it's in these moments of tension that the thematic core of the film begins to crystallize. Jung, who has spent his life working within the constraints of the law, is confronted with an uncomfortable truth. The world he has fought to protect is not as black and white as he had once believed. The partnership with Jang forces him to examine his own moral boundaries, pushing him into unfamiliar territory where the rules no longer seem as absolute. This thematic shift is most evident in a scene where Jung, having been pressured to get results in the investigation, begins to make decisions that question his adherence to justice. The moment when he first crosses the line, choosing to work with a criminal to catch a killer, is both a dramatic and emotional one. It is the moment when Jung's internal battle between law and survival reaches a boiling point. This conflict, between what is just and what is necessary, is at the heart of the film, and it is through moments like these that the film moves beyond mere crime thriller and becomes a meditation on the nature of morality itself. It's not just the characters' internal struggles that propel the story forward, though. It's also the carefully constructed plot twists that keep the audience on edge. One of the most significant moments in the film comes when Jang and Jung are faced with a devastating betrayal, one that forces both of them to confront the consequences of their decisions. This betrayal, in many ways, is a reflection of the film's broader themes, that survival often comes at a cost, and that even the closest alliances are fragile in a world ruled by violence. This moment, when it becomes clear that Jang and Jung are both being manipulated by forces larger than either of them, not only heightens the stakes of the film but also deepens the sense of unease that pervades the story. In this moment, both characters must come to terms with the fact that their desires, whether it's Jang's thirst for revenge or Jung's need for justice, have led them into a dangerous web of deceit, and that the consequences of their choices may not be what they had originally anticipated. What made the gangster, the cop, the devil truly unforgettable, though, was how every decision, from the casting to the location scouting to the action choreography, served the film's central themes. It wasn't just a story about crime and justice. It was a story about survival, identity, and what happens when two men, each flawed in their own way, are forced to reckon with their own darkness. From the smallest details to the most elaborate sequences, every part of the production worked in harmony to create a film that was not only thrilling but emotionally complex. And while the challenges were many, they ultimately led to a finished product that left an indelible mark on anyone who watched it. A film that was as much about the journey of the characters as it was about the story they told. The film begins in a world where the line between right and wrong feels increasingly blurred, and it is within this world that the characters of the gangster, the cop, the devil begin their journey. From the very first moments, the audience is drawn into a narrative that feels both visceral and deeply human, one that doesn't offer easy answers but forces us to grapple with complex themes of morality, survival, and the consequences of violence. Every twist, every pivotal decision the characters make is laden with emotional and thematic weight, and these moments not only drive the plot forward but also serve to illuminate the deepest facets of their personalities. The first major turning point in the story happens when Jang Dong-seok, the hardened gangster, is viciously attacked by a serial killer. This event sets off a series of reactions that catalyze the entire narrative. At first, Jang is nothing more than a man in a hospital bed, broken and vulnerable. But it's this vulnerability that provides one of the most crucial emotional arcs of the film. Jang's reaction to his near-death experience isn't what we might expect. Rather than seeking revenge in the typical, violent fashion that would seem characteristic of his persona, he enters into a strange alliance with Detective Jung, a lawman who represents the very system that Jang has spent his life challenging and undermining. This decision to team up with a cop not only adds a layer of tension and intrigue but also serves as a mirror to Jang's deeper conflict. He is no longer just a gangster but a man whose survival instinct is forcing him to confront forces outside of his control. The moment when Jang, laying in a hospital bed, makes the decision to join forces with Jung marks the beginning of a transformation for him, one that will unfold as the narrative progresses. It is a turning point where his character becomes more complex, where the motivations driving him are no longer confined solely to survival and power but begin to encompass something more, something rooted in the shared human experience of fear, desperation, and the will to survive. As the story progresses, we see the deepening of the partnership between Jang and Jang. Initially, the two men couldn't be more different. Jang, the rogue gangster, and Jang, the principled detective. Their interactions are charged with distrust, but it's in these moments of tension that the thematic core of the film begins to crystallize. Jang, who has spent his life working within the constraints of the law, is confronted with an uncomfortable truth. The world he has fought to protect is not as black and white as he had once believed. The partnership with Jang forces him to examine his own moral boundaries, pushing him into unfamiliar territory where the rules no longer seem as absolute. This thematic shift is most evident in a scene where Jang, having been pressured to get results in the investigation, begins to make decisions that question his adherence to justice. The moment when he first crosses the line, choosing to work with a criminal to catch a killer, is both a dramatic and emotional one. It is the moment when Jang's internal battle between law and survival reaches a boiling point. This conflict, between what is just and what is necessary, is at the heart of the film, and it is through moments like these that the film moves beyond mere crime thriller and becomes a meditation on the nature of morality itself. It's not just the characters' internal struggles that propel the story forward, though. It's also the carefully constructed plot twists that keep the audience on edge. One of the most significant moments in the film comes when Jang and Jang are faced with a devastating betrayal, one that forces both of them to confront the consequences of their decisions. This betrayal, in many ways, is a reflection of the film's broader themes, that survival often comes at a cost, and that even the closest alliances are fragile in a world ruled by violence. This moment, when it becomes clear that Jang and Jang are both being manipulated by forces larger than either of them, not only heightens the stakes of the film but also deepens the sense of unease that pervades the story. In this moment, both characters must come to terms with the fact that their desires, whether it's Jang's thirst for revenge or Jang's need for justice, have led them into a dangerous web of deceit, and that the consequences of their choices may not be what they had originally anticipated. But perhaps the most emotionally charged moments in the film occur during the final confrontation between Jang, Jang, and the serial killer. This showdown is a culmination of everything that has come before it. The tensions between right and wrong, survival and justice, personal vengeance and moral duty. As the killer is revealed, we come to understand just how much of a mirror he is to both Jang and Jang, representing the darkest aspects of their respective natures. The killer is not simply a villain to be vanquished. He is a reflection of the very violence and moral ambiguity that Jang and Jang have been forced to navigate throughout the film. When they face him, it is not just a physical battle. It is a battle for their own souls. The violence in this scene is raw and brutal, but it is also deeply symbolic. For Jang, it represents the final reckoning with the man he used to be, the man he had fought so hard to leave behind. For Jang, it represents the collapse of the belief system that had once anchored him, forcing him to confront the fact that justice is not always served within the boundaries of the law. The emotional weight of this moment is felt in the quiet pauses between the action, in the lingering glances exchanged between Jang and Jang, as they come to realize that the line between them and the killer is not as clear as they once thought. This final confrontation, while physically intense, is also a profound emotional release. It is the culmination of both characters' arcs, where the raw emotions they've been suppressing finally come to the surface. For Jang, it is the moment when he can finally take control of his fate, no longer a victim of circumstance, but a man who has fought for his survival on his own terms. For Jang, it is the moment when he must choose between his duty as a cop and the moral compromises he has made in his pursuit of justice. The film doesn't offer a simple resolution to these questions. It leaves us with the uncomfortable truth that, in a world shaped by violence and moral ambiguity, there are no easy answers. The impact of these key moments is felt long after the credits roll, as the film challenges viewers to reflect on their own sense of morality. The emotional resonance of the gangster, the cop, the devil comes not from its action-packed sequences or its twists and turns but from the way it forces us to confront the complexities of human nature. Each character, from Jang to Jung to the killer, embodies a different aspect of the moral struggle at the heart of the film. Jang's journey is one of survival and redemption, Jung's of disillusionment and moral questioning, and the killer's of a mind twisted by his own darkness. But it is through the interplay between these characters that the film's true power lies. The moments of betrayal, violence, and introspection are not just plot devices. They are moments of self-reflection, forcing the audience to grapple with the uncomfortable truth that in the world of the film, there are no clear distinctions between good and evil. In this way, the gangster, the cop, the devil becomes more than just a crime thriller. It becomes an exploration of the human condition itself, a study of how far one can go in the name of survival, how much one is willing to sacrifice in pursuit of justice, and whether it is possible to retain one's humanity in a world where the lines between right and wrong are constantly shifting. The key moments, the emotional highs and lows, and the thematic undercurrents all come together to create a film that is not easily forgotten, one that lingers long after the final frame. And it is this lingering impact, this deep emotional and thematic resonance, that makes the gangster, the cop, the devil a film worth revisiting time and time again. The magic of the gangster, the cop, the devil is not merely in its raw narrative or intense character development. It's also in the meticulous craftsmanship behind every scene. Filmmaking is a dance between vision and execution, and in this case, every decision, from the smallest detail to the grandest spectacle, was made with care to build a seamless experience. What audiences see on screen is the result of months of thoughtful collaboration, where every technical choice, every creative decision, was designed to complement the storytelling. It's a film where cinematography, sound design, lighting, and production design work not just as technical elements but as extensions of the emotional landscape the filmmakers aimed to create. One of the key elements that sets the gangster, the cop, the devil apart is its cinematography. The film's visual language is one of shadow, contrast, and movement, creating an atmosphere that is as compelling as the plot itself. Cinematographer Choi Young-hwan, a master of his craft, knew from the outset that this was a film that needed to breathe through its images. His work is a testament to how cinematography can do more than simply capture what's happening. It can communicate the tension, the internal conflict, and the foreboding atmosphere that permeates the story. The way he uses shadows to represent the moral murkiness of the world in which the characters live is particularly striking. The settings of dark alleys, empty rooms, and stark cityscapes aren't just backdrops. They are integral to the mood of the film. In a story about characters who operate in the gray spaces of morality, the lighting itself becomes a character, reflecting the ambiguity of right and wrong. For Choi, this was a project that demanded a careful approach to framing. Every shot had to be purposeful, to convey more than just the action but the underlying tension. One memorable scene shows Detective Jang in a quiet moment of reflection, the light cutting across his face, half of him bathed in warmth and the other half swallowed by darkness. This moment, subtle as it is, communicates the deep conflict he's experiencing, the pull between his duty and the moral compromises he's making. The decision to light these characters in such a way wasn't just an aesthetic choice. It was a reflection of their internal struggles. There are countless moments throughout the film where light and shadow are used to mirror the characters' states of mind, giving the audience a visceral sense of their journey. What makes Choi's work even more impressive is his ability to choreograph action sequences with the same level of care. Action scenes in this film aren't just about spectacle. They're deeply integrated into the character arcs and thematic development. Choi's framing of the fight scenes between Jang and the killer, for example, is brutal but intimate. The camera never shies away from the violence, but it also stays close enough to reveal the emotional toll on the characters. These aren't just brawls. They are the release of years of pent-up emotion, a battle not just between two individuals but between two opposing worldviews. The camera moves with the characters, never lingering unnecessarily, but always making sure we feel the full impact of every punch, every decision. The use of handheld shots, especially in moments of chaos, creates a sense of urgency and instability, placing the viewer directly within the action. It's this kind of attention to detail that makes the film's action so much more than a series of violent encounters. It's an emotional journey for both the characters and the audience. Behind the visuals, the sound design plays a crucial role in setting the tone. Sound in The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil doesn't merely accompany the action. It intensifies it, heightening the emotional stakes and deepening the atmosphere. From the very beginning, the filmmakers knew that the soundscape would be a critical tool in building suspense. The quiet moments are as important as the loud ones, and every sound, from the hum of the city to the sudden, sharp bursts of violence, serves to pull the audience further into the world of the film. The sound design team, led by sound designer Kim Ji-young, worked closely with the director and cinematographer to ensure that every sound served a dual purpose, both to enhance the realism of the world and to communicate the psychological states of the characters. Take, for example, the film's use of silence. There are key moments in the narrative, particularly when Jang is alone, reflecting on his actions and his next steps, where the absence of sound becomes almost deafening. In these moments, the lack of noise becomes an expression of isolation, of a man cut off from everything except his own thoughts. In contrast, when the action heats up, the sounds of punches landing, the screech of tires, and the sharp click of a gun being cocked are amplified, creating a visceral, almost jarring contrast to the earlier stillness. It's in these moments that sound transforms from a background element into a storytelling device, one that not only enhances the realism of the world but also deepens the emotional impact of what's happening on screen. The score, composed by Park Kyu-woo, works hand-in-hand with the sound design to further elevate the film's atmosphere. The music in The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is understated yet powerful, often taking a backseat to the raw sound of the environment. However, when it does emerge, it does so with purpose, accentuating key emotional beats. The score often carries a sense of tension, with strings rising and falling, echoing the unstable balance between the characters and the dangerous world they inhabit. There's a haunting quality to the music that complements the darkness of the film, and it's in the most intimate moments, when the characters are at their most vulnerable, that the score becomes most poignant. It's a reflection of their internal struggles, underscoring the emotional complexity of the narrative without ever overwhelming it. In terms of the production itself, the team faced unique challenges in bringing the gritty world of the film to life. The decision to shoot on location, particularly in the bustling streets and alleyways of Seoul, was a conscious one. The filmmakers wanted the environment to feel lived in, to capture the city's urban decay and the disillusionment that permeates the characters' lives. This required long days of shooting in often difficult conditions. The crew had to work quickly and efficiently to capture the necessary shots, with minimal disruption to the flow of daily life in the city. On set, the crew often found themselves working in narrow spaces, squeezing cameras into tight corners, and using lighting rigs that could be maneuvered quickly to accommodate the fast-paced shooting schedule. These logistical challenges, while difficult at times, also served to keep the production grounded in realism. The filmmakers wanted the audience to feel as though they were witnessing real events unfolding, not just a stylized version of the story. And it's this rawness, both in the performances and the technical execution, that gives the film its authenticity. One particularly memorable anecdote from the production involves a fight scene between Jang and a group of henchmen. The choreography for the sequence was a challenge not just because of the physicality involved, but because it needed to be shot in a small, confined space. Dong-seok, who played Jang, had to not only perform the physical aspects of the fight but also convey the emotional intensity of the character's frustration. The team worked closely with a stunt coordinator to ensure that the fight wasn't just about showcasing Jang's strength, but also about revealing his inner conflict. Ma, known for his physical prowess, was determined to make every punch feel authentic, but he also worked with the director to find moments in the fight where Jang's exhaustion and desperation would shine through. The result was a fight scene that was as emotionally charged as it was physically intense, a perfect example of how action and character development can work in harmony. As the production progressed, the team found ways to streamline the shooting process, using clever techniques to convey the chaos of the characters' worlds without relying on elaborate special effects. The filmmakers were committed to using practical effects whenever possible, whether it was during a high-speed chase or a close-quarters fight. The decision to keep things practical, rather than relying heavily on CGI, gave the film a sense of tangibility that wouldn't have been possible with digital effects. The realism of the practical effects allowed the audience to feel the impact of each action, to experience the weight of each moment as if they were right there in the midst of it. Ultimately, the success of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil lies not just in the strength of its performances or the depth of its storytelling, but in the way its technical elements, cinematography, sound, production design, and music, are interwoven to create a seamless, immersive experience. Every decision made by the filmmakers, from the use of light and shadow to the choice of locations to the sound design, was done with the intent to enhance the film's thematic exploration of morality, survival, and justice. In the end, the technical execution is as much a part of the story as the characters themselves, helping to bring the world of the film to life in a way that feels both authentic and emotionally compelling. In the gritty world of the gangster, the cop, the devil, violence, and morality clash in a way that forces the audience to question their own beliefs. At its core, the film is a meditation on survival, justice, and redemption, issues that resonate deeply, especially within the context of a society where the line between good and evil is often not just blurry but erased altogether. The raw nature of the story allows these themes to unfold naturally, with each twist and turn revealing another layer of complexity. Through the actions of its characters, the film delves into the human condition, exploring how far one is willing to go to survive, to protect one's own, and to make sense of a world that constantly throws challenges at them. The nature of these challenges, the decisions, the sacrifices, the betrayals, becomes a mirror for the viewer, forcing us to ask ourselves just how far we would go in similar circumstances. The central theme of survival is immediately apparent from the film's opening moments, where Jang, the ruthless gangster, is attacked by a serial killer. From this point onward, the story unfolds as a high-stakes battle for survival, not only in the physical sense but also in a moral one. Jang, known for his dominance in the underworld, is faced with the reality that no amount of power or influence can shield him from death. This sets off a chain reaction, where survival becomes his primary motivation. But survival at what cost? It's no longer about being the strongest or most feared. Instead, it's about protecting himself, no matter who he has to align with or what lines he has to cross. Jang's journey through the film is a complicated dance between this drive to survive and the consequences of his actions. Detective Jang, on the other hand, operates from a place of duty, of moral righteousness, at least at the beginning. But as the story progresses, his own battle for survival begins to mirror Jang's. Jang is a man of the law, a representative of the system, yet is forced to make compromises that challenge his sense of what's right and just. This internal struggle underscores one of the movie's most profound points, that survival isn't just about protecting one's life. It's about protecting one's soul, one's values, even when everything around you is urging you to give in. The film explores how these two men, one a gangster, the other a cop, are not so different after all. They are both willing to step outside the confines of conventional morality if it means they can stay alive, or find redemption, in a world that offers little in the way of certainty or justice. This moral ambiguity is made all the more compelling by the film's portrayal of justice. The gangster, the cop, the devil challenges conventional notions of justice by presenting a world where the law seems broken, and the rules of morality are negotiable. Throughout the story, the distinction between right and wrong is continually called into question. Jang, the embodiment of the law, is forced to question his own principles as he increasingly allies with Jang, a man who operates outside of those very laws. This erosion of Jang's belief in the justice system is a reflection of the broader societal disillusionment. The characters in the film, whether they are gangsters, cops, or serial killers, all function in a system where the rules aren't designed to protect the people, but to maintain a status quo that benefits a few. In this world, justice isn't something that is served on a silver platter. It's something that must be fought for, and sometimes, that means bending the rules, making deals with those you would never consider allying with. The symbolic weight of the film is intricately woven into its narrative. From the first chase scene, where the camera follows Jang as he stumbles through the streets, drenched in sweat and blood, the film's imagery calls attention to the fragility of life. The constant movement of Jang and the other characters, running from danger, chasing after the elusive serial killer, symbolizes the fragile grasp they have on their own destinies. In a world where survival is everything, it seems that no one truly has control. No one is ever really in charge of their fate. Even the most powerful figures are subject to the whims of chance. This sense of powerlessness is heightened by the dark, often oppressive environments the characters inhabit. The stark cityscapes, the grimy back alleys, and the empty, decaying rooms reflect the bleak world in which the characters exist. It is a world devoid of hope, where the fight for survival is all that matters, and where morality is a luxury few can afford. The serial killer himself serves as a powerful symbol of this darkness. He is not simply a villain to be defeated, He represents the ultimate consequence of a life lived without moral restraint. His actions, his motivations, and his twisted logic all serve as a reflection of the chaos that lies just beneath the surface of society. But as we get closer to the final confrontation, it becomes clear that the killer is also a mirror to Jang and Jung. The killer's relentless pursuit of his own twisted version of justice, his cold disregard for human life, mirrors the lengths to which both Jang and Jung are willing to go to achieve their own versions of survival and justice. The killer is, in many ways, the embodiment of the extreme end of the path that both men are walking. He is what they could become if they allow their desperation to consume them entirely. In this way, the killer also becomes a symbol of the cost of inaction. Jang and Jung, by working together, force the killer into a corner, but the real horror of the film lies not in the killer himself, but in the world that allowed him to exist in the first place. The killer is a product of this broken society, a reflection of its moral decay. His presence in the narrative is a reminder that without true justice, without a system that values human life above all else, people will be forced to take matters into their own hands, creating a vicious cycle of violence and retribution. The killer's role in the film, therefore, is to force the other characters, and the audience, to confront the consequences of their actions and inactions. Another key symbol in the film is the relationship between Jang and Jung. Their partnership, born out of necessity, is a complicated one, filled with mistrust and resentment. It's a reflection of the film's exploration of morality. Two men who, on the surface, could not be more different, yet share a common goal. As the story unfolds, their dynamic shifts from one of uneasy cooperation to something far more nuanced. The alliance between them, initially driven by mutual self-interest, becomes a symbol of the potential for redemption and change. Jang, a man who has spent his life operating outside of the law, begins to realize that there may be a better way to achieve justice, while Jung begins to understand that the world isn't as simple as he once believed. Their partnership is a reflection of the film's broader themes of moral growth and the possibility of change, even in the darkest of circumstances. In the end, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is a film that refuses to offer simple answers. It challenges the audience to think deeply about the nature of justice, survival, and morality, and forces us to confront the complexity of human nature. The film's symbolism, whether in its portrayal of the city, the characters, or the killer, serves to deepen these themes, adding layers of meaning that enrich the viewing experience. Through its unflinching examination of human desires, fears, and regrets, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil doesn't just entertain. It forces us to question the very foundations of our beliefs about right and wrong, and to consider the lengths we would go to in the pursuit of justice, survival, and redemption. It is a film that leaves a lasting impact, not because of its action, but because of the difficult questions it asks, questions that linger long after the final credits roll. When you talk about a film like The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, it's impossible to ignore the undeniable chemistry between its lead actors and how that dynamic elevates the story. Dong-seok, who plays Jang, the brutal yet complex gangster, brings a rare combination of physicality and vulnerability to the role, imbuing the character with a depth that allows the audience to both fear and empathize with him. His performance is magnetic, his larger-than-life in every scene, his very presence demanding attention. Yet, beneath that tough exterior, there's a subtle emotional range that unfolds as the film progresses, especially as his alliance with Detective Jung deepens. This balance between strength and vulnerability doesn't come easily, but it is something Dong-seok excels at, and it's one of the reasons why Jang's character resonates so powerfully with viewers. Across from him, Mu-yeol as Detective Jung brings a grounded, quieter intensity to the film. His performance anchors the story in a reality that might otherwise be overwhelmed by the intensity of the world around him. Jung's stoic exterior hides the turmoil beneath, and the way Mu-yeol navigates that internal conflict is nothing short of impressive. Early in the film, Jung is very much a man of the law, convinced that he has the moral high ground, but as his relationship with Jang evolves, so does his sense of justice, and Mu-yeol handles this transformation with nuance and precision. It's a complex role that demands a delicate balance of restraint and expression, and Mu-yeol masters that dance with ease. But it's not just about the leads. The dynamic between the characters is what makes this film so captivating. While Jang and Jung are the centerpieces, the interactions with supporting characters add layers of complexity to the film. One of the more compelling relationships is between Jang and the serial killer, portrayed with chilling precision by actor Sung-kyu. The killer represents the nihilistic, uncontrollable force that drives much of the film's tension, and Sung-kyu's performance ensures that the character isn't merely a villain but a symbol of the very darkness that permeates the world the characters inhabit. He's not just evil for the sake of evil. He has a logic, a system of madness that challenges Jang and Jung both. There are also the quieter moments on set that provide insight into the magic of the film. The bond between the actors was palpable, especially when they weren't performing, offering glimpses of how their on-screen chemistry was built on real mutual respect. Dong-seok, known for his affable nature, worked closely with Mu-yeol and the rest of the cast to ensure that their interactions were grounded in a shared understanding of the material. They spent hours rehearsing and discussing their characters' motivations, each actor bringing their own interpretation to the table. This collaborative spirit was particularly evident during the film's action sequences. Ma, who had previous experience in action films, would often take the lead, showing the other actors how to approach fight choreography with a sense of realism. Mu-yeol, in particular, was somewhat new to this type of physicality, and Ma's guidance helped him get comfortable in what could have been an intimidating aspect of the role. The energy on set, according to the crew, was one of camaraderie and dedication, and it showed in the performances. Another anecdote from the production involves one of the film's more intense scenes, where Jang confronts the serial killer in a brutal showdown. During the rehearsal for this moment, director Won-tae worked closely with the actors to perfect the choreography, ensuring that the fight wasn't just about physical movement but about emotional stakes. The scene was designed not only to showcase the raw violence of the confrontation, but to deepen the viewer's understanding of the characters' motivations. While Dong-seok and Sung-kyu were clearly the physical powerhouses of this sequence, it was Mu-yeol's quiet intensity that provided the emotional counterpoint. The crew recalls how the actors were often exhausted after a full day of shooting these high-stakes scenes, but they were driven by the desire to do justice to their characters. There was a palpable sense that the stakes were just as high off-screen as they were on-screen, and it was this shared commitment to the story that gave the film its authenticity. This behind-the-scenes dedication translated seamlessly into the final product, and audiences couldn't help but feel that commitment when they watched the gangster, the cop, the devil. From the moment it premiered, the film struck a chord with viewers. Its blend of intense action, complex characters, and morally ambiguous themes resonated with a wide audience, particularly those familiar with the Korean crime thriller genre. The film received widespread acclaim for its ability to balance these elements, managing to tell a gripping story without sacrificing character development or thematic depth. Fans praised the film for its fresh take on the familiar genre tropes, with many noting how the unique dynamic between Jang and Jung set it apart from typical cop and robber narratives. Critics, too, were quick to recognize the film's strength. Many pointed to the performances of the lead actors as one of its standout qualities. Dong-seok's portrayal of Jang was frequently cited as a career-defining role, with his ability to convey both menace and vulnerability in a single glance drawing particular attention. Mu-yeol's performance as Jung was also lauded, with critics noting how he managed to convey the character's internal conflict without resorting to overt displays of emotion. The chemistry between the two was highlighted as one of the film's most compelling aspects. Their evolving relationship, one born out of necessity but slowly transforming into something more complex, kept viewers engaged throughout the film's twists and turns. The film's pacing and action sequences were another area of praise. Critics admired how the film didn't rely solely on fast-paced action to keep the audience invested. Instead, it used the action as a tool for emotional storytelling, allowing the character development to shine through even in the most intense moments. The fight scenes, which were both brutal and intimate, were seen as a reflection of the character's own emotional battles. Whether it was Jang fighting for his survival or Jung struggling with his own sense of justice, each fight served a deeper purpose in the narrative. This careful balance of action and emotion was one of the reasons the film stood out from other films in the genre. The film's critical success didn't just extend to the acting and action, but also to its thematic exploration. The gangster, the cop, the devil was praised for its unflinching look at morality, justice, and the cost of survival. Many reviewers noted how the film avoided offering easy answers, instead presenting a world where right and wrong were constantly in flux. This moral ambiguity, particularly in the relationship between Jang and Jung, kept audiences on edge, never quite sure who they were supposed to root for. The film's exploration of this gray area, where both good and bad characters were forced to confront their own choices, added a layer of depth that made it more than just another action film. Audience reactions mirrored the critical reception, with viewers across the globe praising the film's ability to entertain while also making them think. The movie became an instant favorite among fans of Korean cinema, earning a strong following for its ability to blend action with complex character studies. The gripping narrative, enhanced by standout performances and sharp direction, made it one of the most talked-about films in its genre. Fans were particularly drawn to the film's unpredictable nature, with many calling it a refreshing take on the crime thriller genre. The film's twists and turns kept audiences on the edge of their seats, and by the end, they were left with a sense of emotional satisfaction that went beyond the physical resolution of the plot. Despite its success, however, the film was not without its critics. Some found the pacing a bit slow, particularly in the middle portions of the film, where the narrative takes time to explore the evolving relationship between Jang and Jung. Others felt that the film's violence, while essential to the story, could at times be overwhelming. Yet, these criticisms were in the minority, and the film's strengths far outweighed its shortcomings. For many, the gangster, the cop, the devil represented a masterful blend of action, character, and thematic depth, an experience that stayed with them long after the credits rolled. The film's reception also extended beyond South Korea, with international audiences quickly embracing it. Film festivals around the world recognized its brilliance, with screenings garnering enthusiastic applause. The movie's ability to transcend language and cultural barriers demonstrated its universal appeal, with its exploration of human nature and survival resonating with audiences no matter where they were from. The international acclaim helped solidify The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil as not just a local success but as a film that had the power to impact audiences on a global scale. As the film found its place in the hearts of audiences and critics alike, it became clear that The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil wasn't just another action-packed thriller. It was a testament to the power of great storytelling, compelling performances, and an unflinching examination of the human condition. Through its talented cast, meticulous direction, and thought-provoking themes, it carved out a space for itself as a modern classic in the crime thriller genre, one that would be remembered and discussed for years to come. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil didn't just make a mark when it was released in 2019. It became a transformative piece of cinema that has since woven itself into the fabric of modern filmmaking. Its impact on both the Korean film industry and the global movie landscape is undeniable, as it has reshaped the way audiences view crime thrillers. It's a film that goes beyond the expected genre conventions, blending brutal action, psychological tension, and philosophical questions into a narrative that leaves a lasting impression. The film's success marked a significant moment in Korean cinema, reinforcing the genre's growing prominence on the world stage and confirming that the country was not just producing exceptional thrillers but films that explored deeper moral and societal issues. In a world of fast-paced, action-heavy films, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil stood out as a profound and gripping story that carved a niche all its own. Its influence can be traced to how it resonated with viewers from various backgrounds, becoming an international success with far-reaching implications. Critics and audiences alike lauded the movie for its deft balance between gripping action and character exploration. The performances, especially those by Dong-seok and Mu-yeol, were groundbreaking in their complexity. Rather than falling into the stereotypical tropes of good versus evil, the film explored the shades of gray between its two central characters, Jang, the gangster, and Detective Jung, the cop, creating a morally ambiguous world that asked viewers to reconsider what they understood about justice, power, and survival. In many ways, the film's legacy lies in how it humanized its characters while keeping the stakes high, allowing audiences to feel deeply for them even when their choices seemed questionable. The visceral feeling of watching two men from opposite sides of the law, forced into an uneasy alliance, was compelling, and the film's popularity is a testament to the strength of this storytelling. The lasting legacy of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil also extends into the way it influenced the crime thriller genre. Many films before it had explored the themes of crime and punishment, but this one managed to find a fresh angle by embedding philosophical questions into the narrative. In doing so, it raised the stakes of what could be considered a genre film, elevating it to an art form that could challenge societal assumptions. The complex psychological elements that permeated the story, Jang's internal struggle with morality and justice, Jung's growing disillusionment with the legal system, were more than just plot devices. They were themes that resonated with viewers who saw parallels with their own world. This made the movie not just a film to be consumed but a conversation starter, something that was dissected and debated long after the credits rolled. Its blending of high-octane action with emotional depth paved the way for a new wave of crime thrillers that would come after it. In fact, it's not an exaggeration to say that The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil helped set a new standard for storytelling in the genre, where the human condition was just as important as the plot twists. Its international success also helped shed light on the growing prominence of Korean cinema worldwide. In a time when global audiences were becoming more receptive to international films, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil served as a gateway for many viewers into the rich and diverse world of Korean filmmaking. It was a film that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the best in world cinema, and its success further established Korean filmmakers as trailblazers in the genre. The film became a point of reference for a new generation of filmmakers who were eager to blend action and character development in ways that hadn't been explored before. The international recognition of the film solidified Korean cinema's reputation as a powerhouse in global filmmaking, pushing the boundaries of what was expected from thrillers and crime films. Furthermore, the film's influence can be seen in the rising popularity of what some might call the anti-hero genre. In the years following the release of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, audiences saw more films and television shows that explored morally complicated protagonists, characters who, while flawed and often violent, had moments of humanity that made them relatable. This shift in storytelling found roots in the dynamics of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, where Jang and Jung, despite being at odds, are both forced to confront the gray areas of their lives. Their relationship and shared experiences reflected the growing interest in stories that refused to simplify morality into black and white categories. As such, the film has been recognized as a milestone in the evolution of anti-heroes on screen, influencing everything from Western crime dramas to international thrillers. But the film's impact doesn't stop at its genre or cinematic achievement. The larger themes it explores, power, justice, survival, resonate deeply with broader cultural moments. In an era where societal structures often seem in flux, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil reflected a growing skepticism about the systems designed to protect and serve. The film's portrayal of characters who operate outside the law to secure justice echoed larger conversations around corruption, law enforcement, and the ever-present tension between order and chaos. This thematic relevance made the film feel not just like entertainment but an exploration of deeper cultural anxieties, about the fragility of justice, the personal costs of survival, and the struggle to reconcile personal morality with the demands of the world. As such, the film became more than just a narrative about a gangster and a cop. It became a reflection of the world in which it was made and the world in which it was consumed. The legacy of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is also marked by its role in pushing boundaries within the South Korean film industry itself. South Korea has long been home to directors and actors who have been willing to push boundaries, creating films that are raw, unflinching, and often deeply provocative. However, with The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, director Won-tae managed to meld the ferocity of action with thought-provoking philosophical themes. This balance of brutality and intellectual depth was key to the film's success. For many, it was a sign that the Korean film industry had come into its own as a global powerhouse, one capable of crafting films that appealed to audiences and critics alike, irrespective of their cultural background. The film not only showcased South Korean cinema's ability to create high-quality thrillers but also emphasized that there was more to these films than just entertainment. They were reflections of the cultural landscape, challenging societal norms, and sparking discussions about the nature of justice and morality. Looking beyond just its artistic and thematic legacy, the film also had a profound impact on its cast and crew. For Dong-seok, it represented a significant moment in his career, cementing his place as one of the leading actors in South Korean cinema. His portrayal of Jang, a character who is both a fearsome gangster and a vulnerable man struggling to survive, resonated deeply with audiences. It brought a level of nuance and complexity to the gangster archetype that had been seldom seen before. For Kim Mu-yeol, the role of Detective Jang marked a breakthrough moment, solidifying his status as a versatile actor capable of portraying both subtle emotional depth and intense action. Their collaboration on screen was one of the film's defining features, and their enduring chemistry continued to be celebrated in the years following the film's release. The film also marked a significant achievement for director Won-tae, who had previously worked in the industry but had yet to make a project that had such widespread acclaim. His unique vision, one that blended brutality with emotional depth, redefined how audiences viewed Korean action films. His ability to craft a story that was as much about the psyche of his characters as it was about the external violence they encountered set a new bar for the genre. Lee's direction allowed for a seamless flow between heart-pounding action and intimate character exploration, something that not only made the film stand out in the crowded crime thriller genre but also added to the broader cultural conversation about violence, justice, and moral choices. As the gangster, the cop, the devil continues to be discovered by new audiences, its legacy endures, not simply as a film but as a cultural moment. Its impact is reflected in the way it has shaped the trajectory of Korean crime cinema, contributed to the global conversation about film and morality, and influenced countless filmmakers who see its blending of action and philosophy as a gold standard for storytelling. The film remains a powerful example of how cinema can challenge norms, provoke thought, and provide audiences with more than just an escape from reality. It can hold up a mirror to the world, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths and question our own moral convictions. The gangster, the cop, the devil has left an indelible mark on both its genre and the broader landscape of international cinema, and its legacy will no doubt be felt for years to come. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil is a film that doesn't just settle for being a typical crime thriller. It is a masterclass in blending high-octane action with emotionally complex character development, all while navigating the gray areas of morality, justice, and survival. From the very first frame, it pulls you into its world, a world where the line between good and evil is constantly shifting, and where every character is forced to grapple with their own choices, limitations, and vulnerabilities. The film is an intense ride that keeps you on the edge of your seat, but it's also one that lingers in your mind long after the credits roll, challenging your perception of right and wrong and leaving you with something to think about. At the heart of the film are two characters who seem like opposites but are more alike than they would ever want to admit. Jang, the ruthless gangster, and Detective Jang, the morally conflicted cop, could have easily slipped into familiar archetypes. Yet, what makes the gangster, the cop, the devil so unforgettable is the way it humanizes both men. Jang is not just a heartless criminal, nor is Jang a flawless hero. Instead, they are both deeply flawed individuals caught in a vicious cycle of violence and survival. The brilliance of the film lies in how it lets us into their minds and hearts, showing us their struggles, their pain, and the complex emotions that drive them. Dong-seok's performance as Jang is captivating. He's both intimidating and vulnerable, larger than life yet completely relatable. On the other side, Kim Mu-yeol's portrayal of Jang is equally impressive, as he navigates the emotional and moral turmoil that comes with the realization that justice isn't always as simple as it seems. The chemistry between the two actors, their contrasting yet complementary portrayals, gives the film an emotional depth that transcends the typical action genre. Beyond the performances, the film's direction and pacing set it apart. Director Won-tae crafts a narrative that is both suspenseful and thought-provoking, finding the perfect balance between thrilling action sequences and moments of quiet reflection. It's a film that keeps you engaged with its sharp writing, intricate character dynamics, and unexpected twists. Whether it's the brutal fight scenes that leave you gasping for breath or the quieter, more introspective moments that reveal the true cost of survival, every aspect of the gangster, the cop, the devil serves a purpose in pushing the narrative forward and deepening the emotional stakes. The action doesn't feel gratuitous. It is tied to the characters' emotional journeys, and each scene is a reflection of their internal struggles. That's what makes the violence so effective in this film. It's not just about spectacle, but about conveying the raw emotion of the characters. The cinematography and sound design also play a significant role in the film's success. Every frame is meticulously crafted to highlight the tension and the looming threat of danger. The visual style is gritty and grounded, reflecting the harsh reality in which the characters exist. From the grimy streets to the dark corners of crime-ridden neighborhoods, the film's world feels lived in, authentic, and unflinching. The sound design, too, works in tandem with the visuals to amplify the film's impact. The pulsating soundtrack and the use of silence during key moments heighten the emotional weight, making even the quietest scenes crackle with intensity. It's a testament to the filmmaker's ability to use every tool at their disposal to create an immersive and compelling experience for the audience. But perhaps what truly makes The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil unforgettable is the way it forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. It doesn't offer easy answers, and it doesn't tell us who to root for. Instead, it leaves us questioning our own beliefs about justice, morality, and the lengths we would go to in order to survive. The film doesn't shy away from depicting the messy, complicated nature of the world it presents, and in doing so, it challenges us to think critically about our own lives and choices. Are we really as different from Jang and Jung as we think? What happens when we find ourselves in situations where the law and morality no longer align? The film raises these questions without offering easy resolutions, and that's what makes it so impactful. It stays with you long after you've seen it, leaving you to reflect on the themes it presents and the characters it brings to life. In terms of its cultural significance, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil stands as a shining example of the incredible storytelling coming out of South Korea. It represents a new era of crime thrillers that aren't content with simply providing thrills but are focused on exploring the human psyche and the complexities of the world we live in. It proves that action films don't have to be mindless spectacles. They can be vehicles for deeper exploration of societal issues and the nature of humanity. The film's success is a testament to the growing international recognition of Korean cinema and its ability to capture universal themes that resonate with audiences worldwide. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is not just a film. It is a cultural moment, a reflection of the times in which it was made, and a glimpse into the future of cinema. As we look back on the film's impact, it's clear that its influence extends far beyond the screen. It has set a new standard for crime thrillers, one that combines action with introspection, brutality with humanity, and suspense with emotional depth. It has inspired a new generation of filmmakers to take risks, to challenge expectations, and to create stories that are both thrilling and thought-provoking. And for audiences, it has provided an unforgettable cinematic experience, one that continues to resonate and spark conversations about the complexities of justice, morality, and survival. If you haven't seen The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil yet, now is the time. This is a film that deserves your attention, one that will keep you thinking long after you've finished watching. Its blend of action, character depth, and moral complexity makes it a standout in the crime thriller genre, and its legacy will continue to inspire filmmakers and audiences alike for years to come. So, grab some popcorn, sit back, and immerse yourself in this unforgettable ride. And, as always, if you enjoyed this content and want to stay up to date on more movie analyses, reviews, and in-depth discussions, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you the best in cinematic content. So share your thoughts, tell us what you think about The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, and let's keep the conversation going. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is not just a movie that made waves at the time of its release. It has proven to be a defining piece of cinema with a legacy that has continued to grow. Its release in 2019 was marked by both immediate success and a lasting impact that extended far beyond its initial viewership. While it captivated audiences with its relentless action and morally complex characters, it also set the stage for broader conversations about genre boundaries, storytelling, and cultural shifts in global cinema. With its ability to blend high-octane thrills with nuanced character development, it has become a touchstone for filmmakers and audiences alike who crave a more profound, yet still thrilling, experience. Its influence rippled through the crime thriller genre, but also left its mark on Korean cinema, shaping the narrative and tone of action-packed films that would follow. One of the film's most significant contributions lies in its reinterpretation of the crime thriller genre. Traditionally, crime thrillers were often marked by a simple dichotomy between good and evil. Heroes pursued villains, and audiences cheered for the triumph of justice, often in a predictable, linear fashion. The gangster, the cop, the devil defied those conventions, offering a complex narrative where both protagonists and antagonists were forced into morally gray territory. The relationship between Jang, the gangster, and Detective Jang, the cop, was anything but straightforward. While they might have been on opposite sides of the law, their shared struggle for justice created a dynamic that was both unsettling and engaging. This deviation from the usual good versus evil trope helped broaden the appeal of the genre, appealing to audiences who were seeking something more than just superficial action. It opened the door for filmmakers to explore deeper psychological and emotional landscapes, using genre conventions to delve into the human experience. In this way, the film set a new benchmark for crime thrillers, one that would influence many movies that came afterward. In particular, it sparked a re-examination of the portrayal of anti-heroes and morally ambiguous characters. The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil stands as one of the defining films of the modern anti-hero era, where protagonists are not necessarily paragons of virtue but individuals deeply flawed by their circumstances. Jang's violent tendencies and his unflinching, often brutal approach to getting what he wants are tempered by a sense of vulnerability and humanity. Similarly, Detective Jang's dedication to law and order is challenged by his internal battles with the justice system's failings. Neither character is fully good or entirely bad, and their flawed nature invites audiences to question their assumptions about right and wrong. This blurring of the lines between hero and villain has become a key element of many films since, with the gangster, the cop, the devil playing a pivotal role in ushering in an era of morally complex protagonists in cinema. Its influence also rippled through Korean cinema, further cementing the country's growing dominance in global filmmaking. Korean filmmakers had already made a significant impact with genre-bending films like Oldboy and The Man from Nowhere, but the gangster, the cop, the devil took things to another level by combining raw action with deep emotional stakes, carving a unique niche in the action thriller space. The film's success reinforced the fact that Korean cinema was not just about intense action. Deep societal issues and psychological complexity. The way it balanced these aspects, seamlessly shifting between pulse-pounding action and quiet, introspective moments, was something that had rarely been seen in Korean crime films before. The film's international success demonstrated that audiences were not only receptive to these types of stories but also hungering for them. The gangster, the cop, the devil helped define the next wave of Korean action cinema, inspiring a new generation of filmmakers to take risks and push boundaries. In the global context, the film's success served as a reminder that thrilling action could coexist with intellectual depth, and that international audiences were eager for films that offered something more than the standard Hollywood fare. It wasn't just Korean audiences that embraced the movie. Viewers across the globe connected with its characters, its themes, and its pacing. The film's success further established Korean cinema as a legitimate powerhouse in global filmmaking, capable of producing films that could compete with the best of what Hollywood and other international film industries had to offer. It also reinforced the notion that films made outside the English-speaking world could reach mainstream audiences, opening up new avenues for international films to find their place in the global marketplace. But beyond its immediate impact on the industry and genre, the gangster, the cop, the devil continues to resonate with audiences and critics for its thematic depth. At its core, the film is an exploration of power, justice, and morality. It challenges our preconceived notions of what it means to be good or bad, right or wrong. Both Jang and Detective Jang are characters who, despite their flaws and their ties to violence, are also products of their environment, victims of a broken system that often forces people to act in ways they otherwise wouldn't. The film doesn't offer easy solutions or neatly packaged answers, instead inviting the audience to wrestle with the same difficult questions that the characters themselves face. This openness, this lack of easy resolution, allows the film to transcend the action genre and become something more significant, a commentary on the moral and societal issues that shape our lives. Critically, the film's ability to blend character-driven drama with intense action set it apart from others in its genre. Where many crime thrillers focus solely on the chase, the shootouts, and the cat-and-mouse games, the gangster, the cop, the devil is just as concerned with the characters' internal struggles, their relationships, and the moral dilemmas they encounter. This focus on character, paired with its brutally effective action sequences, helped it stand out as a film that appealed not only to fans of high-stakes crime dramas but also to those who value storytelling and emotional depth. For this reason, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil garnered widespread acclaim and recognition, earning its place as a genre-defining film that was more than just another action flick. It was a work of art that spoke to the complexities of the human condition. The film's success also translated into tangible milestones and achievements, further solidifying its place in cinematic history. The accolades it received at film festivals and in various international film markets were a testament to its quality and impact. Critics praised its refreshing take on the crime genre, with particular attention given to its nuanced performances and gripping storytelling. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil was not only embraced by mainstream audiences but also heralded as an essential film by film critics, cementing its place in the conversation about modern crime thrillers. Additionally, its box office success and critical acclaim demonstrated that audiences were hungry for films that pushed the boundaries of the genre while still delivering on the thrills and excitement that they expected from a crime movie. Another important element of its legacy is the way it has influenced the careers of its lead actors. Dong-seok, who had already earned a reputation as a versatile actor in Korean cinema, received widespread international recognition for his role as Jang. His portrayal of the tough, complex gangster made him a household name outside of South Korea and showcased his ability to combine physicality with vulnerability in a way that few actors could. Mu-yeol's role as Detective Jang also garnered attention, with his portrayal of a man struggling with both his profession and personal demons standing out as one of the most compelling performances in recent crime cinema. Both actors benefited from the film's success, with their careers taking off in new directions and opening doors for further international projects. The impact of The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil on their careers cannot be overstated. It propelled them into the global spotlight and cemented their status as leading actors capable of delivering both commercial and critically acclaimed performances. The film's influence also extended beyond its immediate success to shape the future of Korean crime thrillers. The blend of hard-hitting action and emotional complexity became a formula that many filmmakers sought to replicate, building on the groundwork laid by The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil. Its success proved that there was an appetite for crime films that were more than just action spectacles, that explored the psychological underpinnings of their characters and the moral questions surrounding crime and justice. As such, it set a new standard for films in this genre, and its impact can be felt in the wave of crime thrillers that followed in its wake. It also proved to be an inspiration to filmmakers in other countries, who saw how a film could successfully mix action, drama, and social commentary. Ultimately, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil will be remembered not just as a successful film, but as a landmark in crime cinema. Its ability to redefine the genre, its thematic depth, and its ability to engage audiences on a global scale have ensured that it will remain a classic for years to come. As cinema continues to evolve, films like The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil will continue to inspire and shape the landscape of filmmaking, ensuring its place in the annals of film history as a movie that left a lasting impact on the genre and the industry. The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is more than just a thrilling crime movie. It is a work of art that successfully blends the intense, fast-paced energy of a crime thriller with the emotional depth and complexity of its characters. From its explosive opening scenes to its heart-pounding final moments, it offers audiences an experience that goes far beyond what many expect from the genre. In a time when the crime genre is often inundated with predictable tropes and formulas, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil stands out for its nuanced storytelling, emotionally charged performances, and thought-provoking themes. The film's success is rooted in its ability to subvert the typical narrative of good versus evil. In many ways, it takes a familiar formula, a gangster seeking revenge, a detective pursuing justice, and turns it on its head, forcing us to see the humanity in characters who would otherwise be considered morally compromised. Jang, the fearsome gangster, is not just a violent criminal, and Detective Jang, the resolute cop, is not a perfect hero. Their lives and actions are shaped by complex circumstances, and through their relationship, the film reveals the deep flaws, vulnerabilities, and struggles that define their existence. The film does not rely on easy stereotypes. It challenges the viewer to reconsider preconceived notions about morality, justice, and the blurry line between right and wrong. The stellar performances by Dong-seok and Kim Mu-yeol anchor the film's success. Ma's portrayal of Jang is magnetic, capturing the character's ferocity while showing the vulnerability and internal conflict beneath the surface. He has an uncanny ability to make a character who might otherwise be a ruthless, cold-blooded criminal come across as both terrifying and deeply relatable. Meanwhile, Kim's performance as Detective Jang brings a quiet intensity to the role of a man grappling with his own moral dilemmas and the brutal realities of his profession. The chemistry between the two actors adds layers of depth to the story, creating a compelling and unpredictable dynamic between the gangster and the cop. Beyond the performances, the film's direction and pacing are key to its impact. Director Won-tae has crafted a narrative that is not just about action and suspense, but also about the characters' emotional journeys. The film moves between high-octane sequences and moments of introspection seamlessly, allowing for a deeper exploration of its themes. It's a movie that makes you think, that forces you to confront uncomfortable questions about morality, justice, and survival. The carefully crafted action scenes are brutal, but they serve a purpose. They reflect the characters' internal struggles and the world they inhabit. The film never loses sight of its emotional core, even when the stakes are at their highest, and that's what makes it so compelling. Cinematically, the film is beautifully executed. The gritty, atmospheric cinematography draws you into the world of Seoul's underbelly, with its dark streets, neon lights, and oppressive atmosphere. The visual style complements the tone of the film perfectly, creating an immersive experience that feels both grounded and heightened at the same time. The sound design and music further enhance the emotional weight of the film, adding another layer to the overall experience. Whether it's the pounding beats that drive the action or the moments of silence that heighten the tension, the film's technical execution plays a crucial role in its ability to resonate with audiences on a visceral level. The lasting impact of the gangster, the cop, the devil is felt not just in its immediate success, but in the way it has shaped the crime thriller genre and Korean cinema as a whole. It has become a blueprint for filmmakers who want to explore the complexities of human nature within the framework of action and suspense. Its influence can be seen in the way subsequent films have approached antiheroes, moral ambiguity, and the blending of character-driven drama with genre conventions. It has raised the bar for what can be accomplished within the genre, showing that action films can be both intellectually stimulating and emotionally impactful. More than just a genre-defining film, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil represents a new chapter for Korean cinema. It continues to inspire filmmakers, both within Korea and internationally, to take risks, push boundaries, and create stories that resonate with audiences on a deeper level. Its success was not just a win for the genre, but a testament to the talent and innovation emerging from South Korea's film industry. As the world increasingly turns its attention to Korean cinema, this film stands as one of the shining examples of what the industry is capable of, and it solidifies South Korea's place at the forefront of global cinema. But beyond its cinematic and cultural impact, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil is simply a great film, one that grabs you from the start and never lets go. It keeps you on the edge of your seat with its tight pacing, sharp dialogue, and unpredictable twists. It's a film that challenges its characters, its audience, and its genre. It's a film that demands to be watched and rewatched, one that offers something new each time you dive back into its world. If you haven't seen The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil yet, it's time to experience it for yourself. Whether you're a fan of crime thrillers, character-driven drama, or just good filmmaking in general, this is a film that delivers on all fronts. It will make you think, it will keep you guessing, and it will leave you with a sense of awe at its storytelling power. And once you've seen it, you'll understand why it's a must-watch. One of those rare films that not only entertains but also leaves an indelible mark on its audience. So, if you enjoyed this deep dive into The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Stay tuned for more content as we continue to explore the world of cinema and its endless stories. We love hearing your thoughts, so be sure to leave a comment and let us know what you think of this unforgettable film. And remember, the world of cinema is full of hidden gems, and we're here to bring them to light. Stay with us for more in-depth explorations, and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.